Have a seat on your porcelain throne. It's time to talk some shit on the Powell movement.
Welcome to the Powell movement. I'm your host, Mike Powell, and I just got back from Bend, Oregon. And I know that I mentioned how much I love doing live events, and the 10 Barrel Pray for Snow party reinforced that belief. While I could go on and on about how I crushed my part, I'm just the MC. And while I did have an hour of games and contests to bring to life with my energy on the mic, the real talent was the music on stage. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of funk music in general, so I didn't know what to expect with Sophistifunk, but they were pretty awesome. But what I was really excited for was Andy Frasco. I had listened to Andy Frasco and the UN on my drive down to Bend and became an instant fan. Frasco's a super talented Jewish guy who is such an entertainer, and I don't even know how he does it. I mean, the dude must have drank a full bottle of Jameson on stage, and when he wasn't smoking cigarettes, he was smoking weed, and that's just the stuff I know about. Regardless, he put on one of the better live shows that I've ever seen, and I highly recommend checking out his music. And while his music is great, the dude is really known for his live music, so if you get a chance, check him out at a show if he comes to play your town. So I need to thank Jordan, Andy, Mason, Kevin, and all the good people at 10 Barrel for including me in this event. It was amazing, but enough about the event. It's time for me to get back to why I even have this podcast, and it's ski and snowboard season, and I'm about 3 weeks away from being ready. About 2 weeks ago, I was walking my dog on the sidewalk of a main road in my neighborhood. I was messing with my phone and I got a little tug from my dog on the leash. I stepped off the sidewalk and my dumbass totally rolled my ankle to the point where when it happened, I fell to the ground like I had been shot, and I was rolling on the ground writhing in pain for about 5 minutes. And while so many cars saw this as they drove by, not one car stopped and checked on me to see if I was okay. But I get it. We're still in a global pandemic, and people don't care about strangers like they once did, in my opinion. So I hobbled home. I've been icing, and I should be good to go when the summit at Snoqualmie opens in December. And while I will be skiing soon, it's a total bummer that my guest this week, Jossi Wells, won't be. It's another injury for Jossi, and injury has been a big part of his 20-year career, but he always comes back like a boss. And if you know skiing, you know Jossi's name, the style that he brings to the table, and the switch landings that he's been known for forever. And I'm not going to spoil anything for you. I am going to ask you to follow me on Instagram at The Powell Movement, and tell someone about the podcast. I mean, if you see a post in one of your feeds that's asking for a good podcast to listen to, tag me. Because really, I'm not an athlete or a personality with a built-in audience, but I have a better show than those people, and I get so much more out of my guests that it really would be a shame for you not to let people know that I have a podcast. So please let people know. It definitely helps the show grow, and I greatly appreciate it. And finally, I only work with the best brands out there. Please support them so they keep supporting me. And when I say they, I mean Stanley, Alpine Vans, Peter Glenn Ski and Sports, Dragon Optics, Elan Skis, and the 10 Barrel Brewery. Now, let's talk to Jossi Wells. Jossi.
Mr. Powell, what up, dude?
Not too much, man. How's life?
Good, mate. Just cruising, eh? A little bit slow right now.
So I guess this whole thing starts off with a bummer for you. You recently blew up your knee, and knees are something that have plagued you since you were a kid. You had a patella condition your whole life, and your kneecap hurts most when you land forward, I think. What do you do to the knee this time?
So I have ruptured the patella tendon in my right knee, and it's the exact same injury I sustained in my left knee 8 months out from the last Olympics. So yeah, like literally copy-paste onto the other side, which is definitely unfortunate, but I do know how the rehab process goes, and so this next time around, I'm just settling into it.
And with the patella condition, I mean, it's something that you've had since you were like a teenager, I think, or something that you really knew about. And you had stem cell treatment, and they injected you with stem cells. And a decade later, I'd say it's safe to say it worked. I mean, you got to be back on your skis all day long again, and everything was good. But everyone else I've talked to who've had stem cell therapy, they ended up spending like 30 grand, flying somewhere across the world, going to a strip mall, getting injected with stem cells, and then nothing happened to them. For you, was yours done in a hospital?
Yeah, so back, I think I must have been about 21 or so. Yeah, it would have been about 2011, I think. I've had patella tendinopathy since I was about 15. When it started, I literally remember the moment skiing through the park in Park City, and I landed off a rail and was like, that's a weird feeling in my knee. And then from that moment on, I've kind of battled it throughout my career. For those that don't know, patella tendinopathy is basically like a degeneration of the patella tendon itself. And the nickname for it is jumper's knee. So given my childhood and my youth, it's pretty natural that this became a problem for me.
When you land a big jump, is it something that you just feel like your kneecaps want to pop off?
It's basically like right at the bottom of the kneecap where it attaches to the tendon is where I would get my pain.
Okay.
Super sharp pain, kind of like someone's sticking a knife in there. And basically any landing or whenever my legs are under like pretty heavy load. So skiing in the back seat, like skiing heavy powder is pretty bad for it, landing big jumps. And so, I mean, if you kind of look back on my career, you can see I landed switch a lot of the time. It was just a lot easier on them. But yeah, in about 2011, it got so bad that I wasn't really able to ski consistently enough to perform at the events. And so was looking at options, and they are pretty slim for this type of thing. But my dad was doing some research, found out about this kind of stem cell stuff they were working on, where they take some of your cells, your tendon cells out of the tendon, and then use stem cells and rip that cell to create these tendinites. So I flew to Melbourne, actually, to a hospital there. They took a sample of my tendon, and then I went back 6 weeks later, and they had cultivated like 10 million of these little tendinites that were my cells, basically. Inject them back in, took 3 months off, and then started skiing again, summer camp in Whistler, and took it easy for the first few months. And then I was back ripping, and I could ski like all day long again. And yeah, basically like, you know, saved my career. I wasn't able to shred very hard, and then was able to continue till now. I mean, they said that this issue with patella tendinopathy, they told me I would never rupture them. Like, it wasn't an issue of that. It was more dealing with the pain of it. But here I am now at 31 with both ruptured patella tendons, which is a pretty rare injury to have, and to have done it on both knees. You know, I mean, I've been jumping off high stuff for a long time now.
Yeah.
I think they're just like, hey, mate, I've had enough of that. But I mean, my left one now has made a pretty great recovery, and, you know, I've still been able to ski full time and do the things I want to do, running, biking, skating, whatever. So I'm pretty confident I'm going to make a full recovery with this other one as well. Just take some careful management, you know?
Yeah. Well, it's weird that landing switch, which you've basically been known for your whole career, I didn't know it was a pain management thing. It's like, hey, he's going to land that way so it doesn't hurt his legs when he's landing, which is crazy to me. But that's just how it's been with you. And while I'm talking about injuries, how many different knee injuries have you had over the years?
I've never had any like huge major knee injuries, to be honest.
No ligament stuff?
No, like the only 2 surgeries I've had in my knee has been these 2 patella tendons. You know, before that, I mean, I've just dealt with this patella tendon pain and issue the extent of my career, but I've never done any ACLs. You know, I've torn MCLs before, but that doesn't require surgery. Just have a couple months off.
Yep.
So yeah, it's kind of just been the one issue for me. And I think maybe because of this issue that I really manage my skiing pretty closely in the ways in which I land, and I avoid a classic way to blow your ACL is to land backseat over rotated, right? And I guess because I've spent a lot of time avoiding landing backseat at all costs, I've kind of skipped the ACLs and just kind of been dealing with other stuff.
Yeah. And then another thing you dealt with injury-wise in 2010, you did an ankle on a skateboard, which is a lot better than doing an ankle on skis, I would think, because I can't even imagine how miserable it would be to have a broken ankle and have to have your ski boot cut off. Has that ever happened to you?
Yeah, I mean, I broke the ankle skating. That took me out for a little while. But even getting my boot taken off the other day with my knee blown and my patella kind of up higher in my thigh and all the nerves and stuff open and everything just kind of crazy. Getting the boot taken off at ski patrol is a pretty hectic experience, dude.
Yeah, I can't even imagine just the pain that you must go through. So you had that skateboarding injury in 2010. That was a serious one. In 2014, you come up short on a jump and you break your back and your neck, which is a huge one. I mean, that's the big fear for everyone. Whether you're a skier or not, you don't want to break your neck and you want to be able to walk for the rest of your life. But from the moment you take off and you realize you're going to land short, that's got to be the scariest moment of your life. Do you think right away, like, all of this could be gone?
Yeah, that one was pretty scary, dude. I was guinea pigging the jump over in Aussie for this big air event, one hit wonder. And yeah, just didn't take enough speed, came up short on the jump. And I mean, it wasn't the impact on the knuckle that did it. Obviously, with the state of my knees, whenever I knuckle, I try and like disperse all energy, not just straight through the knees. So I kind of slapped back pretty hard to try and take the weight off, but I was going pretty quick. So I bounced off the knuckle and then flew like 3/4 of the way down the landing, kind of drifting backwards, and landed kind of reverse scorpion on the back of my neck. And it was that impact on the landing that did it. And yeah, I had pins and needles down through my legs. And yeah, that one was pretty scary. Went to the hospital, had scans, and I had a step in C6, I think. C6 and 7 were broken. And so I had enough spinal fluid in between my spinal cord and the vertebrae itself, even with the step in there, that it didn't require surgery. So they just put me in a neck brace for a few months. And what I felt, the pins and needles and stuff, I think they call that like a spinal concussion or something. Like the bone will have like just nipped the spinal cord briefly, which kind of gave me all those pins and needles. But that one was scary. When you do knees and other stuff, you can always come back. But when it involves the neck and your legs and stuff, that one was definitely scary.
Yeah, I mean, that can take away your whole life as you know it, I mean, if you're stuck in a chair for the rest of your life, while you can make it a positive experience, and there's a lot of people that have, that's the scariest thing I would think that could ever happen to you. But I'm glad that we've gotten injuries out of the way, or actually we haven't, because now that I think about it, you've had like a 15-year, 20-year pro career. I think you've been on Atomic for like over 20 years. So 20-year pro career, and we've established injuries are a big part of it. But how much time in those 20 years do you think you've been injured? Has it been like 7 years of injuries?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, I've definitely spent a bit of time being injured and rehabbing. I think that when you're in this type of game and the risks are high and, you're constantly pushing to better yourself and be at the cutting edge of where the industry's at and stuff, it is a dangerous game, and you kind of just got to be willing to take the hits. And I mean, if the passion's there, then, you're willing to get back up and do it again. And skiing is something I'm super passionate about, and it's my favorite way of expressing myself. And I feel most at home when I'm on my skis. And so no matter how many times I get knocked down, like I have enough drive to get back up and get back at it. I mean, as you get older, it gets a little harder, or there's just a different perspective as you get older, and, what's worth it? What's my risk management strategies? Where am I willing to push it? When am I not? And yeah, I mean, I just think that like a lot of the times when I have been injured, I've come out of it the other side, have grown a lot, just as a man and life in general. And so taking some time away from the rat race of skiing is not necessarily the worst thing. Obviously, it sucks to get hurt and go through that process. But I think if you talk to any other skiers or athletes that go through injuries, a lot of times it's a great time for you to just kind of reset your goals and see where you're at and kind of put everything in perspective and come out the other side hungrier and stronger than ever. So I've always just tried to make sure that having these downtimes is something that I use to my advantage and maximize my time off snow.
When you think about risk and everything, and you think about the different aspects of skiing that you're doing, whether it's half pipe or slope style, I would think that half pipe, especially, just the risk level where you're going so high out of the pipe, if you push off at all, it's like a 40-foot fall to flat, and there's just so much risk in it. And for most of the people I talk to, it doesn't sound like it's that much fun for them, especially on that level. Sure, if they're to do a pipe run that they want, nothing huge, just keep it big and fun, they're loving half pipe. But do any of the aspects of skiing ever get not fun to you, especially after coming out of injuries? Like when you have to ski a 22-foot pipe after you're not 100% on your knee? I mean, is that kind of like intimidating more so than fun?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at a ski career, obviously we're all really passionate about skiing and we enjoy it, and it's something that has been a passion for us, and that's why we've pursued it. But when you're pursuing a high level competitive or professional career, whether it's filming or in contests, like that's your job, and there's elements of skiing that do become a job, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just like if you're going to spend your life doing something and putting your all into it, like it's not just going to be roses the whole time. And when it comes to half pipe and slope style as well, big air, and even in the backcountry, like there is moments when it can feel like a job, and those moments are when you may not be super comfortable and the pipe is super icy and it's early in the morning, or you're at a contest and the weather's not so good, or whatever it is. There's these moments when you kind of have to dig deep, and it is work, and you do have to push past those boundaries of fear in your mind or uncomfortability. I mean, we all that are in this career in this area, like we've kind of made our place in like the depths of uncomfortability. Like that's where we thrive. That's where you kind of set yourself apart from the rest, is how are you able to deal with that pressure and perform at the right time. And so, yeah, I mean, there's definitely times that it's not comfortable, but that's kind of just, it's action sports, man. Like it's not always comfortable. And, you know, people see the video parts that come out and it's like, you might see a couple crashes here and there, but if people could see what it takes to learn a new trick in the pipe or to build an entire backcountry video segment, if you could really see like what goes into it, like it's hard work and dedication. And that's why, you know, it's rewarded highly when it's done well and it's out in the public space.
And it seems like from the time that you started learning tricks, it has totally changed. I mean, when you started to learn stuff in the pipe, you weren't going to resi ramps, there weren't foam pits, there weren't anything to really learn the stuff like there is today. And do you look at like the trick level now where everything has gotten ridiculous? You know, I mean, I thought when it was like the Switch 1080 game that like, oh my God, skiing is crazy. But the Switch 1080 game is like laughable now compared to what people are doing. Do you look at all the ways that people are learning tricks as almost cheating compared to what you were doing back then?
No, I mean, I think it's just growth. It's just the sport moving with the times. I mean, you know, when I was a kid, we didn't have foam pits and airbags and stuff, but, you know, we had trampolines, and that's where I would learn a lot of my tricks as a kid. And then there was definitely an element back in the day of like, you just have to try it and see how it goes. And, you know, if it goes wrong, then you're getting smoked on the snow on the landing. But, you know, I think it's all relative, right? Like the tricks that we were trying back then without airbags and stuff, it was like, yeah, it was scary because we were just trying it straight on snow, but we were also like learning tricks that were of that time. And nowadays, yes, everyone has airbags and these training camps and facilities to learn on, but on the flip side, like the tricks that they're having to learn to be at the top of the game are like just as equally gnarly as it was to learn the tricks back then. You know, like I think the risk is probably higher now, even though there's a pathway to learning tricks that is safer. Like the risk of these tricks of messing them up is like quite a lot higher. Like the tricks that are being done now are so full on. And I think it's kind of similar with any sport. As a sport grows, like it grows with the times, and it's hard to like compare something from nowadays to what it was like back in the day, because the situation is just totally different. And I think that kind of goes across a lot of sports. But yeah, man, being an older guy now, I'm pretty psyched that I'm not 14 years old right now. Like, to try and break through in the industry now, it's crazy, man. It's definitely wild out there.
To think about trying to break in as a 14-year-old, you're from New Zealand. And what I found for kids that want to get sponsored is it's always easiest if you have a ton of talent to be from the US, because a lot of the brands are based here. There's a ton of sales here. And if you're an American, it's easier to get sponsored. Next up is Canada. But when you're out in New Zealand or Australia or all these different places with smaller markets, it's really hard to get noticed. I mean, did you find that when you were a kid of like, you really had to come to the States for people to see who you were to really get noticed on a big time level?
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's known that our industry kind of revolves around North America and Europe. I would say the park scene and what I was into at the time, like the US was definitely, that's where it was all happening. So, you know, I had to come over there to get a career popping off. You know, I came to Park City my first season when I was 14, and that's just where I wanted to be at. That was where I was seeing all the footage from, all the photos in the magazines. And I remember Byron and myself, it might have been the last freeze ever, or maybe the second last freeze mag. It was the one with Yoon Olsen on the front doing that cork 7 lead mute in his all orange camo.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I think TJ had like a sick 270 sequence on that flat down box at North Star, the yellow one, in the contents page.
Okay.
But, you know, we were flipping through that magazine and we saw all these photos of Tanner and Pep in Park City, and the park looked insane. And we were like, dude, we have to go to Park City. This has got to be the spot. And so Byron and I convinced mum and dad that that's where we wanted to go skiing for the winter. And so they sent us over there to stay with a family friend. And Byron and myself, 14 and 12 years old, went over and spent 3 months in Park City.
Now it's time for my first sponsor break, and I'm going to start things off with Peter Glenn Ski and Sports. Peter Glenn has been getting people out there for over 60 years. And whether you're going on vacation or a weekend warrior, or ski or ride every day, Peter Glenn has all the brands, all the deals, a knowledgeable staff, a price-matching policy, and free shipping on orders of $49 or more. If you're listening to this podcast and need gear, please do me a favor and head on over to peterglenn.com. They have all the deals, and by buying from them, you are supporting the show and keeping it going. So please stop by peterglenn.com to shop Black Friday early through Cyber Monday and get some incredible deals from some top brands in the ski and snowboard industry. My next sponsor is Elan Skis, and holy crap, I don't know if you saw the news, but Elan just released a Glenn Plake signature model, the Ripstick Tour 104. It's handcrafted in the Slovenian Alps, and Glenn worked with Elan designers and engineers for 18 months to create his dream ski. And I think I need to say this again. Holy crap, Glenn Plake has a pro model, and it's about time. This ski features a combination of carbon fiberglass and a wood core to create a ski that's ultra lightweight, but still has plenty of rebound and pop. Glenn wouldn't sign off on a ski that he didn't think was the very best, and Elan has produced it. You can find out more about the Plake Pro model, the Ripstick Tour 104, and my everyday ski, the Ripstick 96 Black Edition, over at elanskis.com. My final sponsor this round is Dragon Optics. They are an athlete-driven brand that puts their money where their mouth is by supporting the best athletes in the world with signature models that all feature Dragon's color-enhancing LumaLens technology, a swift lock feature that makes changing lenses take seconds, armored venting, which is a better intuitive way to vent and remove snow, and a super anti-fog coating that actually works. Danny Davis, Kimi Fasani, Forrest Bailey, and Chris Benchetler all have signature models of the NFX2. Jossi Wells has the RVX that has the best over-the-goggle fit on the market, and Brian Iguchi has the vision-increasing PVX model. And I'm going to save you 15% on all of these. All you need to do is head on over to dragonalliance.com, go shopping, and at checkout, enter the code POWEL15, that's all one word and the number 15, and you'll get that discount. Those are my sponsors this round. Now, let's get back into the podcast. There's a lot to talk about before you even get to the U.S., and I have a ton of people on the show that are born to be in the ski industry, whether their parents live in a ski town or their dad works for a ski brand or whatever. And you're one of them. You're the New Zealand version of that. Your dad, Bruce, he's the head of ski patrol at Cardrona. And when you were a kid, is that where you learned how to ski?
Yeah, so Dad worked ski patrol at Cardi's for 20 years or so. So we just grew up in the patrol room up the hill. Mum also worked up the ski resort. So from the get-go, we were on skis. And then I went to school for a couple of years, and then Mum and Dad decided to homeschool us. And so I was able to ski a lot during the winter with my brother Byron, and we'd do our schoolwork at night when we got home from the hill. And that's how it all happened. I mean, it's funny to look back on and see like all the decisions. Like Mum and Dad never set out to like breed professional skiers, but just the decisions and the placement where we grew up and where Dad happened to work and all those decisions and how it all worked out is like, yeah, of course we ended up being skiers. Like it was all set up without knowing, you know.
It's kind of funny though, because it's almost like, not that you're the opposite of your dad by any means, because I'm sure you're very similar to him, but it's all New Zealand mountain culture for you growing up. But in reality, your parents are both Australian surfers. And it's like, how the hell did they even end up in New Zealand in the snow?
Yeah, I know. They moved to New Zealand. Well, they'd been coming to New Zealand for a few years before I was born, working up the ski field. And then when they decided they were going to start a family, they sold their house on the central coast of Aussie and thought Wanaka would be the perfect place to raise a family. So moved here full time a couple of years before I came along. And then, yeah, kind of the rest is history. But I'm pretty psyched. I mean, I imagine if I grew up on the beach, I'd be super into surfing. But I'm pretty thankful that the life that they set us up with is pretty amazing. Spending a lifetime in the mountains ain't bad.
No, it seems like it worked out. What it did was rob your dad of all the summers that he'd like to have taking his kids surfing, but what can you do there?
I know.
And then being a homeschool kid, given you have 3 brothers, so there's 4 people in the homeschool, but looking back on it now, does that ever mess with you socially, just not having the interaction with a ton of different kids?
Nah, definitely not. I mean, Wanaka was like a pretty small town back then. I mean, it's kind of popping off now, as most popular mountain towns are. But, you know, Wanaka was a pretty small community when I was a kid. And, you know, I still would meet up with my friends right after school every day to go skate or whatever it was. You know, I was really involved in all the school sporting events. And the local school and then high school was really cool about including me and my brothers in kind of all those activities and things just around the schooling. So I went into the high school to do woodshop class and computing and stuff.
Oh, so you were kind of in school a little bit. You knew everybody.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough that small enough town that I was part of a good crew and I didn't really feel like I missed out socially at all.
And I know you learned how to play the violin when you were a kid. What other talents did you develop when you were coming up?
Yeah, mate. I played a lot of violin as a kid, and that's how I paid for my first flight to come overseas and ski, was from busking. That's how I used to hustle cash outside the supermarket with my violin. And I mean, growing up, we just did all sports. I was a competitive swim racer until I was about 15. Obviously, ski racing as well until I was about 15. We played soccer, skated a lot. I've just always been an outside, physical, active type of dude. And so sports really like drew me in from when I was super young.
You know, and I've seen clips of you, I think, or I've seen one clip of you rollerblading, I believe. And there's been skiers in the past and right now, I'm sure, who think rollerblading is lame and that skateboarding helps you build your skiing more than blading does. But what were your thoughts on rollerblading and how it impacts your skiing?
When I was super young, I did a lot of like rollerblading and skateboarding. And so I was always like rolling down to the park with my rollerblades in one hand and my skateboard in the other hand, and was just kind of swapping back and forth. As I kind of got through to maybe like super early teenage years, I just found that rollerblading kind of had this cap. Like you'd get to this level where you could kind of do anything you wanted to. And then the next step was like doing super crazy tricks. The next like stage up was kind of like a massive leap. And so I kind of got bored of rollerblading because it was just kind of like, it felt like it capped out a bit.
Okay.
Skateboarding, I always felt like there's something that you can progress at and get better at. And there's always a new trick to learn. And it's not necessarily like trying to backflip over a spine in the bowl or something, you know, like
less hammers, more tech.
Yeah, early teenage years, I kind of stopped rollerblading and just kind of spent all my time skateboarding. I don't know, I was just more drawn to it as I got a bit older.
But life really revolves around skiing for you, and you're a ski racer coming up, and you do that till you're 15, like you said. And based on the amount of time that you're on the hill, because I'm going to guess that your parents just would drop you off at the hill and be like, come home at 4, and you could pretty much have your way on the mountain. Was that how it was as a kid? Just like you have all day long to ski as long as it's good, and then we can study at night?
Yeah, pretty much, eh? So, you know, I was involved in like obviously race training like team here at Cardrona and Treble Cone, and then I was involved with a bit of a crew that was free skiing as well. Once we were probably like 14 or so. But I mean, from such a young age, Byron and myself would just go rip around Cardrona for the day. You know, we were so small and young. You know, we were probably like 7 and 5 or something, and we'd just be ripping around the hill, and we couldn't even sit on the lifts when they'd come around because I was come up to our like upper backs, and so we'd have to ask the lifties every time we'd come around to like lift us on the chairlift. But we're still like ripping around the mountain wherever we want to go. So yeah, pretty fond memories growing up, man. You know, obviously Byron's closer in age to me, so it was him and I for a long time, and then the younger boys came through, and yeah, really fond memories of ripping around the mountains here, and still doing it now, 3 decades later.
With that much time on the hill, and then you're focusing on ski race training as well, I would think you're a podium guy. Like, are you the kid to beat in your age group growing up?
Yeah, I mean, I was definitely, you know, getting podiums in the ski races here in New Zealand. I think the last year that I raced, I won the nationals for ski racing in my age group, and then won the free skiing nationals as well. And once I got to FIS level, like, I really enjoyed ski racing. I just didn't really enjoy like everything that went around it. The early ads, mornings training, the intensity of the coaches, the race suits you had to wear. I felt like it was a pretty like competitive scene between the kids and the parents. I don't know, it was pretty full on, and free skiing was kind of really taking off, and I started getting some flow from Oakley and Atomic, and I was getting free gear and getting to go hit jumps. I'm like, man, I'm not getting like free gear for ski racing. Like, this is way sicker. I'm having way more fun on these jumps. No one's telling me what to do. I can do whatever I want. This is sweet. And so once I got to FIS level, I bailed on racing and just went fully into the free skiing side of things. And it still wasn't even like, I don't know if it was a full career choice at the time. It wasn't like, oh yeah, becoming a professional free skier is like the dream. This is the thing where I'm going to be able to earn a living. Like, it wasn't even like that at the time. It was like, I enjoy free skiing more than anything, and I just want to focus on this. It wasn't like an idea of trying to create a career at that point. And then, I don't know, it all just came to the States, and it all just kind of unfolded and started happening pretty quick. And the next thing, I'm like standing at the top of X Games. I'm like, whoa, This is pretty nuts.
I mean, to me, it seems like the limiting thing for you in both ski racing and in park and pipe is your weight. I mean, you're a small guy, especially back then. I'm sure you were way smaller. It's almost like I've said it to Pettit before, like, hey man, we should put some weights in your pocket so you can actually get some more speed, velocity, and generate some more air out of your run. But was that something that held you back when you were younger? Was just like you couldn't get enough speed to send it?
When it came to ski racing, like I was always really good on technical courses, like steep technical courses. When it flattened out a bit and there's momentum involved, I wouldn't be as strong just being such a small dude. And then for free skiing, I mean, it was never really too big of a deal. I think like when it comes to jumps, like you could always just go up higher and carry more speed.
Yep.
And I mean, in the half pipe, maybe it was a little harder when you don't have as much momentum to go big. But, you know, then you see the likes of Bayumu snowboarding and he's like the same size as me and goes like 30 feet out of a half pipe. So I think it really just comes down to like technical ability and being able to like ride the transitions correctly. So I'm not sure if the size really ever held me back. I mean, I think probably it helped. I've got a pretty low center of gravity. So I'm definitely been a pretty agile kid and that's helped me to hone my skiing and how I wanted to.
I mean, you could even look back to like, I think it was 2008. You and Colby are in the finals of the Big Air at the US Open, and you have to go like 200 yards up further than anybody else to be able to even drop in to get enough speed for the jump. And it's like Colby had to go up even further because he's not the biggest guy either. So they're yelling up to Colby like, hey, Colby, can you tell Jossi it's time to drop in? And Colby's like yelling up to you, Jossi, it's time to drop in. And you're like, okay, mate, I'll drop in. Did that happen a lot, or was that just that one event?
That was such a good evening. That was crack up. I mean, I've just said that it didn't hold me back, but that night, especially with that new snow coming down, I was like hundreds of meters further up than Colby, mobbing in and still couldn't go bigger than him because we were like doing the same trick pretty much. So it was like just basically whoever was going to be able to do it the biggest, and Colby was starting way lower than me and still going bigger because it was such a long flat and run. That was such a fun night. Yeah, I mean, there's been times where having some weight, some momentum, it definitely helps. I mean, I think as soon as it starts snowing and things slow down a little bit, especially back in the day when we weren't maybe as like full on with ski care and having wax techs with the teams and stuff, like back in the day, it was pretty just like the boys doing their thing by themselves. But then over time, you know, with being part of the New Zealand national team once that was formed. And I mean, if you look at like 2016 X Games when I won gold there, like it was fresh snow, slow snow, and I'm not the biggest dude, but I was able to clear all the jumps fine because I had a really good wax tech on my side. So I think there's a lot of factors that come into like being able to carry speed and go big. But definitely as a kid growing up, a lot of those like big air jumps and stuff like that, I was always starting way higher than everyone else. I'd see where everyone was starting and be like, cool, I'll go up another, 100 feet or 30 feet or whatever it was to like carry the same amount of speed.
And I would say that being small is something that a lot of the great pro skiers are. It's not a sport where you need a lot of height, so that works in your favor there. But what I have noticed is that sometimes when someone isn't that tall, we'll call it height challenge per se, they have a Napoleon complex. You have never seemed to have that from what I've noticed, and I've seen you from afar, and it just seems like you're a normal dude. What skier has the worst case of it in the ski industry?
Oh, crack up. I don't know, man. I mean, at least the like competitive ski industry, like everyone's kind of got a little bit of a Napoleon complex, and it doesn't even have to do with like the size of anyone. It's like we're all competitive people, so like we're all there to like beat each other, even though we are like all best mates, and it's kind of a weird like paradox within free skiing. I mean, it definitely used to be, but I don't know. I mean, the greatest short skier of all time has got to be Simon Dumont.
Yeah, I mean, I figured that was the easy answer. I was just waiting for you to say it.
Yeah, totally. I mean, he was the king, and whether his motivation stemmed from being the size we are, or if it's just like he's just got competitive drive, like, I think all of our experiences, mold together and kind of shape our personalities, and maybe that's a part of it. But I think Simon was just a super driven, highly, highly competitive dude that was highly skilled and used skiing as his outlet to showcase the best of his ability. And I mean, it was always so amazing to watch, going from growing up watching the dude to then being best mates with the dude, traveling, sharing rooms with him, and then to see him carry on outside his ski career doing his thing. Like, Simon Dumont's the man. Shout out.
Were you rooming with him during the height of like the Simon and Tanner battles, and were you able to kind of see the aftermath of those back at the hotel room with Simon?
Yeah, I mean, towards the end of that period was when we were both on Nike and we had both been on Oakley. Yeah, I think like at X Games, Simon would kind of have his own place that he would stay at. A lot of the other contests would be sharing rooms or staying in the same hotels or, you know, staying at Nike houses together. But I definitely got to see Simon in his element during the day, at the contest, after the contest. And that dude, man, he was an amazing competitor, and I definitely took a lot of inspiration from him. And, you know, I watched him for knowledge and how he handled situations and took bits and pieces that I thought were great traits and tried to implement them into my own career and experience up there in the Stargate.
All right. Well, we're going to take it back a little bit because we got way ahead of where I wanted to be. I wanted to ask you about when you win the national championship in both, and when I say national, when you win the New Zealand championship, but there's probably a national championship there. What am I talking about? But when you win it in both slopestyle and in ski racing, when you win both of those things, are you going to these events with 2 pairs of boots and 2 pairs of clothes? And once you get done ski racing, it's like, now I can put on my cool clothes and I don't have to wear my nerd shit anymore?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely at the races, like once the race was over, we'd be change into it, or maybe we'd just like run our baggy pants over our ski suits with the like arms out hanging behind us like suspenders or something with our big jackets.
Yep.
Yeah, dude, I hated race suits. They were the worst. I was always out of that thing as soon as I could be and straight back onto the twin tips and off to try to find the sickest lines and rock drops that the resort would have where we would be racing at. There was a cool crew of us from Wanaka and Queenstown. There was a couple dudes from Queenstown that we skied with after the events, and yeah, it was cool.
I feel like they could do one of those pictures where it's like, tell me that you're not cool even though you think you're cool, and it would just be like a picture of you in a race suit.
I mean, they have their purpose, right? But they're not overly comfortable or warm for that matter.
Yeah. And in terms of the ski scene back then, I mean, you're so far away from it in New Zealand, and it's all like pre-internet, or the internet's out there, but it's not like there's the content that there is today, and people aren't looking at their phones all day long for content. I'm sure you got your information from the movies. Were you watching all the ski, skate, snowboard, just every kind of movie that you could, action sports-wise back then?
Yeah, I mean, definitely being down here. When I was a kid, it was like pre-internet, you know, like content on the internet, really. So anything that we would see would be from a DVD that would show up down here. You know, one friend would get some latest Poor Boys DVD, or I would get one from somewhere, and all the magazines. And so we're always like getting it pretty lagged behind. But that's where we saw where the industry was at and what everyone was doing. And so, you know, I think my first ski movie that I was given for a birthday present from a friend was The Realm, TGR, TGR's The Realm. Then shortly after that, I saw Happy Days for the first time. You know, it was like, saw Tanner's segment in that and was like, yep, this is the dude. This is what I want to do. And then after that, it's kind of when Snowpark all started up and running. And then some of the dudes started coming down, like Tanner and Pep and JP came down here, and we saw 1242. Like, they brought that movie down. And then we started coming over to Park City. And yeah, man, like, it was so incredible getting to ski with JP and Pep and Tanner and Anthony Bonowski. Like, those guys all were down here, and getting to ride with them at Snowpark, and just, they let us just like follow them around, and just probably so annoying as little grommets and just like trying to copy everything they did. And they were always so rad. Like, there's still a JP poster in my old room at home at mum and dad's, a JP poster that he signed to Byron and I, because we shared a room, and one of Pep. Yeah, man, that was such a cool time for New Zealand skiing when those guys started coming down, and our parks were like getting better and better, and Snowpark was popping off, and man, what a sick time.
It's time for my final sponsor break, and I'm going to start things out with Alpine Vans. Alpine is the one-stop shop for anyone who wants to live the best, most functional van life out there. The crew at Alpine is made up of engineers, fabricators, and designers who double as ski patrollers and passionate mountain bikers who live in their vans for weeks at a time. If you are thinking about the van life, You need to check out Alpine and need one of these vans. But don't just listen to me. Head on over to alpinevans.com and watch the video Cody Townsend put together around his 50 project van that Alpine fabricated. And you will see why no one is doing the custom work that Alpine is. While you're there, check out their thoughtful quote builder and know that even with the van shortage out there, Alpine has sprinters in stock and can have the custom van of your dreams in your driveway in 90 days. So now is the time to order and treat yourself to the best in 2022. My next sponsor is Stanley, and they invented the category of keeping things hot and cold back in 1913. You know, that green bottle that your grandpa used to keep his coffee hot? That's a Stanley. Well, they still make that green bottle, and it still keeps your coffee hotter than their competition, but they also make so much more. I'm a huge fan of the pint glasses, and think everyone needs a set. They keep beer or non-alcoholic beverages ice cold for hours, and their food storage options make parking lot meals at the resort so much easier. And they have so much more than that. And I'm going to save you 30% on everything. All you need to do is head on over to stanley1913.com, go shopping, and enter the code DRINKFAST. That's all one word, all lowercase when you check out. Orders of $75 or more, you're going to get yourselves a free Powell Movement beanie while supplies last. My final sponsor is the 10 Barrel Brewery out of Bend, Oregon. They've been brewing the Northwest's best beer since 2006, and they also live a life of skiing, snowboarding, and biking. And of course, drinking their beer outside. The folks at 10 Barrel also support more in snow and bike than any brand I can think of. And their world-class team of athletes speaks for itself with names like Ben Ferguson, Lucas Wachs, Carson Storch, Kate Zelef, and more. But the best thing about 10 Barrel is the beer. And while I'm a huge fan of their new Pilsner, one that I haven't tried, but I'm going to, is the Pray for Pow beer. It's 10 Barrel's most awarded beer ever, and since I haven't had it, it's going to be my next six-pack I pick up at the store. I think you should do the same when you're at the store, and to find out more about 10 Barrel and all their beers, events, and pubs, head on over to 10barrel.com. Those are my sponsors. Now let's jump back into the podcast. How about like the Pettits and the Kais of the world? Were they heroes of yours because of age, or was it more like the Tanners of the world because of contest results and what you're seeing in the movies?
There's a whole thing, right? Like, we didn't really get to watch X Games because I didn't have like cable or anything, so it was pretty much just the movies. And the first I saw of like Kai and Sean was in Dubski, obviously, and like seeing that and being similar age was just like, yes, these dudes are so sick. They were like a massive inspiration to Byron and I when we were young, just because like skiing kids that were super young being in the films and ripping was like super motivational and inspirational. And then once we were out in Park City, getting to see all the Park City crew and how good everyone was when we got there, and it just really like gassed us up to like elevate our game. And you know, we had an insane posse in Park City. Our crew was like Alex Schlopey, Josh Christensen, McRae Williams, Vinny Gagne was there, Alexi Godbout. Like, we had this crazy posse in Park City, and all of us were just like feeding off each other. And like, you know, it's funny to look at now and just see that like every single one of our posse, like we all ended up making careers for ourselves and doing well in events or filming. And yeah, like those times in Park City was super special, man. Like, formative years. I think I learned probably 98% of the tricks I can do today during those few years in Park City with that crew.
I can imagine when you're being pushed by those guys. But even before you go there, you and Byron go to Italy for like 3 months. Like, some photographer guy sees you and he's like, hey, we're going to open a resort and build a park, but no one knows how to ski any park here. We need to bring you out here just to make the place look good. How about we'll pay you and you live here for 3 months? Is that kind of how that program worked out?
Yeah, we got approached from a photographer, Dino Benelli. He had a snowboard shop in a resort in Italy called Prato Navoso. And this resort, they were going to build a half pipe and a terrain park. And at that time in Italy, it wasn't really like a thing there. It was such a, you know, basic ski racing type of place. And Dino was out here in New Zealand, saw us shredding, was like, man, I should bring these guys out here to Italy and get involved, because we were still racing at the time, get involved in the race team, and then, you know, take the race kids to the park and show them how to use the park, basically. So Bridget and Pete Lignavsky, family friends of ours, they're running Cardrona nowadays. But they took Byron and I over to Italy. I was 13, Byron was 11. And we lived over there for 3 months, and Bridget and Pete worked on the ski school there, and we were involved in the race program and then just ski park whenever we were not racing. And man, we had a sick time over there. It's pretty sick. It was crack. I was talking to Bridget and Pete a couple of days ago at Byron's wedding, and I was asking them what age they were when they took us, and they were like, younger than I am now. And they took these 2 Groms over to Italy. I was like, you guys are insane. Like, that sounds crazy.
I mean, it is kind of crazy, but I think about it more and it's like your mom's doing childcare, your dad's running the ski patrol or ski school or whatever he's running. And it's kind of one of those things where there's not a shit ton of money within the family. I mean, you have this ski bum lifestyle where you guys are going to be able to ski, but like to travel and ski, that's a hard thing to do. So when this opportunity comes up, it's a huge deal for you. And you get to go to Italy, you get to experience that culture, you get to ski, you get to feel important, I would think, which is all big deals. There's probably a little bit of money involved. And then you get back, and 2 years after you're back from there, you decide to quit ski racing because the park and pipe scene's blowing up. That's what you're having the most fun doing. When you quit racing at 15-ish, do you let anybody down? Like, are your parents let down? Are the coaches let down? Or does everybody realize that your future is in the air?
I mean, Dad wanted a ski racer. He was pretty bummed when I wanted to bail. But he obviously saw like where my passions lie. And Mum and Dad have always been really amazing support systems and supportive of what we wanted to pursue, and like never been like those pushy parents or anything. Like they never had an agenda of trying to like push us into what they wanted to do. It was always just supporting what it was that we wanted to do if we were serious enough about it, right? And so when I told Dad that I wanted to focus full time on free skiing and this is where I wanted to pursue and racing wasn't going to be it and whatnot, then he was fully supportive and then got on board with helping make sure that could happen in any way. I mean, like you said before, like we didn't come from money and it was hard, man. I mean, that's why I paid for my flight to Italy from playing my violin. And, once we were over there, they took care of us. They had a place set up for us and we basically just had to get ourselves there. And so we're super fortunate for that setup. And yeah, from about 15 is when I started getting some travel budget and whatnot from the sponsors that I had, Greg Stokes at Oakley and the Atomic Crew. And once I had some travel budget from the sponsors, that was insane. That was like so huge for our family, being able to afford to go to the States for 3 months to ski and post up and be able to make those trips was massive.
I kind of am chuckling to myself right now because you mentioned Atomic and they gave you some travel budget, which is amazing. But all that popped into my head was Rex Thomas's nipple rings and triplets. And were you on the Atomic program when Rex Thomas was running it and they had the triplet skis?
Oh yeah, Rexy baby. Rex was my first proper TM at Atomic, like when I was put onto the global team and Rex was running the program for them. Rex took me to Europe, I think a couple of times, like 2 years back to back. I think I went to Europe with Rex, and then we had such a sick crew on those trips. It was like me, Ian Costco, Charlie Ager, Josh Stack.
It was a pretty loose crew.
Oh, it was super loose crew, dude. I was like 15, didn't know what was going on. And that crew was just like, they were loose, man. It was pretty crack up. Super fun trip though. Those guys are great. Yeah, the triplets. That was a crazy time, man. The early days.
That was. It was a very interesting marketing program. Buy 2 skis, get the third one free. At K2, we made fun of it with an ad in Skis Magazine because we kind of ripped off Freeze and made Skis Magazine. And it was the baker's dozen, buy 12 skis, get the 13th for free.
Nice.
But no one ever bought one because we didn't really make that a program. But either way, after all of this, when it's time to go to university or to extend your education, is there any even thought of that? Or is it like, I am going full bore into skiing and your family's 100% behind you?
Yeah, I mean, by the time I finished high school, I had a couple X Games medals and I was like earning a living skiing. And my teachers at the New Zealand Correspondence School, which I went through high school, I went through high school with them. And, I'm having them asking me what I'm going to do with my life. And like, I'm going to go to university. What am I going to do? And I'm just like, like, I have a career already that I'm like multiple years deep in and I'm earning a living and like, I'm doing this. There's no other thing I'm doing. Like, as soon as I don't have to do high school anymore and have to like split my time between studying and skiing, like I'm just going full-time skiing. So for me, it was never an option. And I mean, there was nothing else that I wanted to pursue. And I was just fortunate enough that I had a career that was like established enough that it just made sense. And I had the support of mum and dad. And I've always been under the impression it's like, if I do want to pursue something outside of skiing, at whatever point that is, like I can go and study for that and go back to university if I want to. But just to go to university for the sake of it, like that's never been a motivation of mine, and it's never been something that my parents like pushed upon me whatsoever. They're like, if what you want to do, is going to involve having to go and study to do it, then sweet, go and do it. But just to go for the heck of it, there's no point in that. So yeah, I was pretty lucky with where I was at that stage.
Yeah. Where you ended up going after New Zealand is you came to Park City, like you said. I think it's around the time that I Ride Park City is everywhere, and that's when their terrain park was like the best at the time. And you have an insane crew. But I think the crazy thing about it, where you say you learned 98% of your tricks at that time, is just the amount of skiing that you guys are doing. I mean, you guys are going bell to bell, but bell to bell is like 9 in the morning to 8 at night almost. I mean, was that every day you were just frothing and just all you were doing was skiing?
Dude, it was probably like 10 at night. We'd ride from 8 in the morning till 4 o'clock and the lifts would close, and then they'd open back up at 5 for night skiing until like 10 at night. Dude, I honestly can remember vividly the feeling of what it was like at that time. I was skiing every single day, no matter what the weather was like, all day, every day. And when I was at home at night, I had this like uneasy, anxious feeling that I wasn't skiing and that I needed, like I couldn't, it was like, I need to get back there as soon as I can. It was this crazy, crazy feeling that I don't know if I feel that towards anything these days. It's like that young drive of, you know, someone in their mid-teens where like nothing else mattered on this planet other than me getting to ski and being on skis. And it was just, you know, when you're like, you've got some big event coming up or you've got something you're super excited to go on holiday and you're just like counting down the days and you're just like so anxious you want the day to come. It was like that, but like once I got off the hill and got home, it was like I felt that towards like the next day being able to go skiing again. It was super crazy. Yeah, that's pretty fond memories, man.
And are you guys traveling around and hitting comps that year too, or is it just staying in Park City and just shredding?
We would do a trip out to Colorado for the US Open with the Park City crew. Blake Nyman was our coach at that time.
Oh, cool.
And yeah, we did a few years in a row. We did a trip out to Colorado. We stayed at Luke Allen, Ocho's place in Keystone, and we would just ride all day at Keystone and then go over to Vail for the contest. And the early contests, I mean, there wasn't like heaps of them going on, but we definitely traveled to the ones that we could get to. Yeah, I think the US Open is the one that like fully stand out. But then, you know, once we were, I think probably 16, I was already doing like X Games and like the ski tour was happening at that time. And, you know, some of those bigger events was by the time I was like 16. So those first early years in Park City, US Open was like the major one we'd go to.
And I remember I met your dad at the US Open. I want to say it was year 2. It was the year that was like a blizzard. Was that the first or second year for you?
Was that at Vail or was that at Copper?
I think it was at Vail.
Yeah, I think my dad was there for the second time I was there. The first time I was there, it was just like full solo.
No, it would have been the second time. It was like a miserable day. Yeah. And the end of the slopestyle course was kind of almost mid-mountain, it seemed like, so it wasn't down low. So there wasn't many people in the finish corral. But me and your dad were in the finish corral. From what I remember, he was smoking cigarettes. He maybe had a video camera in his hand. And he was like screaming at you, but you weren't anywhere near to be seen. But he just, go for broke, Jossi! Go for broke! And he yelled that like 100 times. And I remember going back to the office at K2 being like, man, I feel bad for that guy, Jossi. I didn't know your situation or anything that was going on. I just thought you had a soccer coach type dad who was screaming at you and yelling at you in that way. And I thought to myself, man, that would suck to have your dad yelling at you like that. But now that I kind of realized what your situation was at that point, was that like an important thing to have your dad like yelling and kind of get you hyped up for the contest?
Man, I don't even remember that. I mean, I think Dad is like, he was always, I mean, he's passionate and fired up when we're going to rip. And it was never like, oh, Dad's like putting pressure on me right now. It was like, yeah, Dad's got my back. I mean, Dad has more trust in my ability on skis than I do. He always has. And like, having his support at any of these events over the years, like if I was to start doubting myself or feeling like, oh man, I had a terrible practice or something, like Dad would just say stuff to me that was like Dad's trust in my ability and my ability to perform under pressure. And at the time, like it was unwavering. And like my dad has been my number one supporter, my number one fan, number one enabler of me to, you know, pursue my dreams, and to have him there with all his passion alongside Michael Spencer with all his passion. It's a pretty winning combination there. So, it's always been sick support from Dad, and never felt over the top or too pressure, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it was a blizzard. It was miserably cold, and there was like 2 people out there. Me, the team manager, who felt like I needed to be out there, but I really could have been at the bar. No one would have known the difference. And your dad, who was just there to fire you up, it seemed like. I just thought he was being a soccer dad, but it sounds like not even close to that. But at this point, we've been going for almost an hour, and I feel like we have another hour at least to go. And would you be willing to step up and do a round 2 in like a week?
Yeah, sweet as, dude. No worries.
Okay, well, so before we do a round 2, I have something in the show that I call Inappropriate Questions. What I do is I get someone that you know, and I have them ask 3 questions, and they can be anything. And at the height of your ski career, when you were traveling the world like an absolute rock star, there was like 5 dudes. It was Simon, it was Peter Olenek, I think Luke was part of the crew for a while, and Colby West was also part of that crew. I was able to talk to Colby and have him ask you 3 questions. And are you ready for question number 1 from Mr. Colby West?
Let's do it.
What was your decision-making process when you decided to try to ride your hardtail to California?
So you wanted to know your decision-making process when you decided to ride a hardtail to California. Where were you riding the hardtail from? Because that really plays into it.
Yeah, I rode my 1957 Harley-Davidson Panhead chopper from Summit County, Colorado, out to California.
Oh, that sounds uncomfortable.
Oh, yeah, but it's so good. It's like the best thing I've ever done.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's super cool. I mean, the thought process, I mean, have you ever like ridden an old Harley chopper across the States? Like, it's a pretty unbelievable feeling, man. It's kind of like skiing in a way. Like, the feeling of freedom is mental. I mean, I'm not even American, but every time you see like American flags as you're riding past on choppers, you're like, yes, freedom, let's go. But I don't know, that's such a cool experience, man. Like breaking down on the side of the road, having to fix it multiple times, running out of gas in the middle of the desert, having to hitch rides and get jerry cans, and the problem solving involved in riding old Harley choppers is super rad. I always really enjoyed that. So I would do it again in a heartbeat. I love that.
All right, well, he's got a part 2 to this question, so I'm going to play it now.
The follow-up to the riding your hardtail to Cali was, when are you going to get your fucking hardtail out of my driveway?
Yep, Colby has definitely got one of my motorcycles in his garage.
Does he have the keys?
He's got the keys. I don't think it's running, though.
Oh, okay.
It takes some upkeep. I think he tried to get it going, but yeah, I mean, I don't live in America these days, and I've got like motorcycles and trucks and snowmobiles and stuff over there. So like very great friends of mine are holding on to some of my stuff for me. So thank you, Colby. I'm waiting for the day until he just sells that thing and it's not there anymore. I mean, it'd be good if he got it running and he could ride it, but it needs some work.
Yeah, but it's like, it sounds like a really classic bike. And if it's just sitting at his house, I know Colby doesn't have that much to do every single day. He's got to be able to figure that thing out and then just go be a baller on it. But we'll go with his second inappropriate question.
How is your fashion design career coming along?
Oh, there we go.
Do you have a fashion design career? I don't even know about it.
I don't have a fashion design career. I mean, anyone that's followed my career has seen me go through multiple different phases.
Oh, for sure.
I think everyone goes through phases, except mine were just like amplified because there was the internet and I was, you know, a skier doing my thing. And so everyone got to watch my phases. I've always been very interested in fashion and product design. So no, I haven't actually kicked off my fashion designing career, but I have gotten to have some pretty rad opportunities to design products and things with the companies I ride for, whether it's through Dragon, getting to design my own goggle each year. We're working on a sunglass frame right now, or, you know, getting to do graphics for the Atomic Infamous ski for a number of years. Yeah, getting to work with these companies and having some input into the products, and, you know, maybe not a fashion design career, but getting to pursue my passion for that type of thing with these companies and getting those opportunities has been pretty rad.
What is the most embarrassing look that you've had over the years where you look back at pictures and you're like, God, that phase was just stupid?
Oh man, there's some pretty bad ones, eh? There was a phase where I was running like pretty nice, like sweeping fringe. Like Bieber ended up having that haircut when he came out, but I was already running that haircut for a while. It's pretty harsh. I used to run like that haircut with like V-neck t-shirts and like super skinny jeans.
Yep.
That's probably the most cringe phase that was going down.
Fair enough. All right, we will jump into Colby's last inappropriate question.
How many more times are we getting married?
What does that even mean? You married Colby? You're super religious. You're not, I didn't think they married guys.
I don't know. I'm actually getting married in 2 weeks.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm marrying a wonderfully beautiful, sweet girl named Victoria, and I cannot wait, man. It's going to be so cool. It's pretty hard, obviously, right now with the state of everything to have a wedding. She's from the States, so we can't really bring in the families together or anything at this point. So the two of us are going to go do an elopement up in the mountains here in New Zealand at an alpine lake, just the two of us. And yeah, it's going to be special, man. I'm hyped.
Is there any chance we can do the second part of the podcast like an hour before the wedding? I think that would be great.
Maybe not. I might be a bit busy.
All right, fair enough. Well, I will plan on hitting you up next week and we can pick a day and we can do the next hour of the podcast. But it's been really nice to get to know you a little bit. You know, I've seen your career since you were a little kid. I mean, I've been at a lot of the events that you did really well at and got to watch you kind of grow up. Given we didn't really know each other, but I was aware of your talent and kind of who you were the whole time. And it's cool to see who you are and realize, man, that you are just as good of a kid as you come off to be. So I thank you for your time and look forward to the next round of the podcast.
Hey, thanks a lot, Mike. Cheers, dude. Talk soon.
So that was part 1 with Jossi Wells, and he's one of those guys that I would see everywhere, but we really never talked that much. He was so young and he had a great home with Atomic, meaning that I was never going to look at him for K2 because it was obvious he was at a place where he belonged, and they've been so good to him for so long. That's how the athlete relationships should be. I will say, back then, I did notice the cross on Jossi's helmet, and while I didn't mention it in round 1, you can bet that I'll try and talk about religion in round 2, and find out what else it is that makes Jossi tick. Until then, it's time to read the review of the week, and this week it comes from Singapore. It's a 5-star review titled Customer Reviews. Thank you for a consistently entertaining show, driven in no small part by your excellent interviewing skills. Stuck on the equator through COVID in Singapore, your podcast has been an escape to a mountain world I miss so much. Cheers. P.S. I do have a beanie-worthy U.S. address. Well, Singapore, thank you for that review. It does make me feel nice, warm, and fuzzy when you say nice things about my interviewing skills. I feel like they have developed over the past 5 years, and while I thought I was a good interviewer when I started this thing, I feel like I learn a little bit more every week, and it gets a little bit better. But that's me, and other people might think something different. And if they do think something different, they can easily review me on iTunes, and they can win a beanie just like you're going to win. And you have a U.S. mailing address, so all you need to do is email me at mike@thepowellmovement.com with that mailing address, and I will send you a beanie. For anyone else who wants to get a beanie, as winter is here pretty much, all you need to do is buy one on my website or submit a review. And it's not hard to do. Here are the steps. First, hit the podcast icon on your iPhone. Second, search for the Powell Movement. And even if you've already subscribed to my podcast, you still have to search for the Powell Movement here. Then, click my logo. Once you've clicked it, scroll down to where the stars are, and then you can give me a star rating and review. Please give me whatever you feel I deserve. And from there, it's time to write the review. The whole process takes about 2 minutes, so it's super easy. I used to think it helped the show grow. I don't know if that really is true anymore, but really, when I read a positive review, it makes me feel good about myself, and it makes me feel like I'm doing these things for a reason. And when I get a bad review, it makes me feel terrible about myself. Actually, it doesn't make me feel that way, but I definitely get down when I read terrible reviews, but I don't have that many, so that's okay. But it's time for me to stop babbling. I guess the final thing is if I read your review on the show, you can email me with your info and you will get a beanie. If you are outside of the U.S., you will need a U.S. mailing address because I'm only shipping beanies within the U.S. because I hate doing the paperwork to send it to an outside country, and it's really expensive when I do that. So that's the deal there. Finally, I want to thank you so much for listening to the podcast and ask you to please support my amazing sponsors. They are Stanley, Dragon Optics, Alpine Vans, Elon Skis, Peter Glenn Ski and Sports, and the 10 Barrel Brewery. Have a great week, everyone.